This is my third video diary entry, and it's Friday the 4th of September 2009. This is the end of my first week here, I suppose, and should have been the end of my first week of working at the orphanage, although because of some faffing around, I haven't spent all week working there. The last couple of days, though, I have. So, a bit about Ulaanbaatar and how it's going, I suppose. I'm getting more and more used to the city. It's an interesting place, and I suppose one thing that I'm not quite going to get used to is the language. The language is Mongolian, obviously, and it's like a combination of Russian. At times, it sounds almost Japanese to me. But what it most regularly sounds like is Welsh in a Spanish accent, and partly because of that, and partly because even if I learned how to say, ask a question, for example, there's no way I'd be able to understand the answer. So because of that, as my colleague Tim says, I'm putting the Mongolian language in the too difficult box, and I think so far I've been able to get by without knowing any Mongolian. I now know Tatsun, which means full, which is very important for when I'm eating here. But apart from that, I seem to be getting on okay without knowing much Mongolian. I was walking toward the main square in the town, Ulaanbaatar Square, and one thing about Mongolians is that they quite often take a lot of pride in their appearance and the clothes that they wear and the cars that they drive. And I was walking towards town and I had a pair of high-tech silver shadow trainers on, which I bought specifically to come out here in because they were, they're just cheap and easy to wear and comfortable. And he looked at them and kind of scoffed and sort of pointed at them and nudged his mate as if to say, look at those. And it's quite difficult when someone does that to not instinctively forget all of the pinko-liberal kind of thoughts and feelings that I have, and actually think to myself, you know what, mate, although I didn't buy these because they're expensive, they do cost a week's salary in Mongolia, which is a terrible thing to think, but he was laughing at my trainers. And I also thought, well, there's one thing I can be sure of, and that's that they are genuine high-tech. I don't think that your Gucci trousers are actually made by Gucci, so it was interesting to be laughed at for my clothes by someone with such obviously fake trousers on. Most of the second half of this week has been out at the orphanage. It's called the Lotus Centre, and it's in the west of the city, and it's okay so far. But the kids have just started back at school, so I'm not getting to see an awful lot of them. But that's fine. There's lots of things to do around the orphanage, and depending on the ages of the kids, they sometimes at school in the morning, sometimes in the afternoon. Some of them have quite good English, and it's quite difficult, or it was quite difficult on a couple of occasions where they seem to ask the same sort of questions, I suppose, because they only know a certain amount of English. And after the "what's your name, where do you come from," there tends to be three questions that two different children have asked me so far, and it starts with, "Do you have children?" which is obviously no. "Do you have a mother?" which is yes, and "do you have a father?" which is yes, and it's quite difficult to answer those questions. When you've had a loving mother and father for 27 years, it's quite difficult to say that to an orphan who may never have known who his parents were at all. But they ask, and I'm not gonna lie to them, obviously. So I met up with a guy called Shane from Australia and a girl called Angelina from Germany, and we're all three of us working at the same orphanage. And we were talking about how to sort of divide up the work. And when we got there, I think I was expecting the orphanage to say, well, we've got this, this and this to do, so is that okay? But they actually turned to us and said, what do you want to teach? What do you want to do? What can you do? What's your background? Now, I kind of, they also, for some reason, I think it was on my CV, so they said to me kind of fairly soon, oh, you can play the guitar, you can teach the kids to play the guitar. So I guess I'm going to be doing that. When I was asked, so what's your background in your work, I couldn't really think how else to describe it other than say, well, financial regulation, I guess, as incredibly dull as that sounds. And they kind of leapt on that and said, oh right, well maybe you can sort of teach some sort of, we've got like an Excel package on the computer, maybe you can teach the kids some of that, and you know, maybe you can sort of have a look at some of the accounting that the orphanage has got. And I was thinking, maybe that was a mistake telling them that I've got a financial background, because I don't necessarily have a financial background, it's just I work for a financial organisation, I suppose. And so the idea that I'd be teaching kids how to use Excel is frankly ludicrous, but I guess that's what I'm going to be doing. Yesterday afternoon we went to the kindergarten, which is in a separate building, and there's about 12, 15 kids there, range of ages from 2 to 5, and we went out there and basically just looked around the building because it was new, and then played with the kids for a bit. They then went to sleep for a couple of hours, so we had something to eat, and then played with them more in the afternoon, which was fantastic. They're brilliant. It was incredibly tiring though. I mean, 2 hours of being in a room, like a playroom with I think it was maybe no more than 8 or 9 kids, and there was 3 of us. Very tiring, and I think maybe I'll spend a day or so a week, maybe a couple of mornings a week over at the kindergarten, and then the rest of the time at the main orphanage. I think that's about it. I can't really think of what else to say, and the last video came in at only just under 10 minutes, which took me half my life to upload to YouTube, so maybe it's best if I keep these shorter. And I think that's about it. Love to everyone at home, and I'll do another one of these soon.